Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz are in Stephenville, Newfoundland. As we speak, they are signing an energy deal which will see green hydrogen exported to Germany in the future. Before the Chancellor flew to Newfoundland, he sat down with me for an exclusive interview. Have a listen. Chancellor, it's a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to welcome you to our program. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I wanted to start off on the focus of this trip, which over the past few days I think has become apparent to Canadians is much more so on a future green energy relationship between Germany and Canada. My question to you is, why is the focus not more on the immediate crisis your country faces when it comes to the supply of gas? So many Germans right now, for example, are worried about how they're going to pay their bills over what's going to be a very hard winter. Why is that not more the focus of this trip?
It is an aspect of my trip and of the debates I have with all my friends here, that we also are asking for support in the situation we have now. And obviously there is the need for using gas, which we buy all over the world from good partners, when we stop to buy gas from Russia. And this is what is also our talks about. But obviously this is part of a bigger strategy where the two countries are very similar. And we both are very ambitious in becoming climate neutral economies. Germany is one of the biggest industrial countries on the globe, and we are really successful. We want to be this also in the future, but we want to have a CO2 neutral industry. And that means that we have to work with other countries that could be the right places for producing hydrogen, green hydrogen especially, that are having the ability to using critical minerals and other things that are necessary for this better future, where we are more successful in digitalization, where we are very successful in electric mobility, but also in the way how we produce energy.
And I certainly understand that, and I think it's come across over the past few days in the remarks you've made, as well as the Prime Minister here in Canada. When you say, though, that part of the discussion is ways in which Canada, for example, can help support the immediate need that your country faces in trying to extricate itself from dependency on Russian gas. Help me understand what that actually means, because when I hear the Prime Minister speak about it, he seems to downplay any role Canada can play. Is there any possibility of a direct relationship where Canada will export more LNG to Germany in the immediate future? From your understanding, is there any possibility of that?
One thing is already happening. Canada, as many other countries also the United States, increased the production of gas and the export of gas to the world market, which is also important for us. Even if these exports are not directly going to Germany or to Europe, it helps because there is a lack of supply when the gas from Russia is not more there for being used in Europe, for instance. And so this is an important activity. On the other hand, we are creating the atmosphere for very direct talks between the business sectors of Canada and Germany, if there is something which could be done now in this very crisis and where there could be a stronger support. But this is part of the follow-up between the business people of the two countries.
The Prime Minister yesterday said there wasn't a business case for it. Do you agree?
He said it is something that has to be understood when they are working in this field, whether there is or not, because if it's too expensive, it will not fly, to be very honest. But if there's something that could work, it is worthwhile to look at. And we are at this stage, and I think it is the right thing to do when you're a serious politician, that you speak about what is the fact. And the fact is that they are now starting to find out whether there's something that could be done or not.
You met with Quebec's Premier, and in the past year, Quebec has, through its own approval process, essentially become a key player in limiting the ability of natural gas to get from the west of this country over to the east, where it could be exported, possibly in the future, to Europe. Did you directly address that with the Premier of Quebec?
We discussed a lot of questions, also the questions that are important for the future when we discuss about hydrogen, about renewable energies and their use and things like that, and also where there could be cooperations in industrial fields. And we are saying what we say publicly, that yes, there is a situation where a lot of countries are looking for other suppliers of gas, and that's something which is clear to all parties, also to those over there. And it is the same what I can say about this, as I said, as we discussed already before. It is now something where the responsible people have to look at what is feasible, what not. We will see.
I guess why I'm asking, though, just to be clear to you and our viewers, is because politically Quebec has opposed the construction of a pipeline that would bring that gas to the east. And what I'm hoping to understand from you is, I understand that the conversation is broad, you've spoken publicly about what's feasible, what isn't, that politicians have to take a look at that. Did you ask the Premier to not stand in the way of construction of a pipeline that would help ultimately in the long term, or more medium term, I should say, ease your country's dependency on Russian gas?
This is a big friendship between Germany and Canada, which we are developing. And it would be not the right way to demand something and
or even ask him to consider.
Someone to not to do or to do. It is explaining what are our needs, understanding the needs and the perspectives of others, and creating the atmosphere for having and finding solutions in the future. And this is where we are. It would not have made sense to go further.
Does it make sense from your perspective? I guess I'm trying to understand for Canadians, because there is a debate here, right, where climate is concerned about whether we should even be exporting more LNG. Is there a case from your perspective? Would you like to see, if I could ask you bluntly, Canada export more LNG to Europe?
We would really like Canada to export more LNG to Europe, yes. And you should know what we are doing. If you look at Germany, together with me, when I came into office in December last year, I asked my teams, what would happen if the supply of gas from Russia would stop? And so we were prepared when this brutal war Russia started against Ukraine began. And we found out that we have to do a lot of things, because we have gas from Norway, which we import, and they are doing the best they can to send more gas via their pipelines. We have gas from the Netherlands. We import gas from the western coasts of Europe, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in France, and also there is an import infrastructure where we can get it from the UK. But we have not built terminals for importing liquid natural gas to Germany from at our own shores in the north. And this is what we are changing now. And one of the decisions is that in a very, very short time, we build pipelines to the northern shore. We will build ports at many places for importing natural gas, liquid natural gas, LNG. And this will really make a difference.
And I think it's an important point that it's happened so quickly, and certainly I would not want to take away from any of that. But I have also, there is still a big impact right now in the near term, and I've consumed as much local media in Germany as I can, and there is a lot of pressure facing your government right now because of how worried people are about the situation they face. Yes, maybe in a year, in 2 years, it won't be the same, but this winter they are very worried about. You were a part of the government in a significant capacity, a government that decided, despite Russia invading Crimea, despite Russia's history in other parts of Europe, that the dependence on gas over a number of years would increase where Germany is concerned. Do you feel that was a mistake, and do you regret it?
I worked very hard in the last years to make it happen that we built such ports as I explained to you now. And this was not successful because there was not a business case. No one was booking gas to this planned ports. But due to the fact that there were a lot of people working since such a long time in building such ports and infrastructure, The plans are ready. They are there. And I knew it. And this is why I've enforced very much now to do what I would have preferred that it would have happened earlier. And all people know in Germany, because there was also a debate 2 years or 3 years ago where I was criticized for supporting the idea of building such an infrastructure. And for dealing with that situation we are now in.
And I take your point on all that, but it doesn't take away from the point from the point that dependency on gas did increase for a number of years. From what you said, my understanding is, or I'm wondering, are you trying to say that you saw what Putin was capable of, that you saw it coming? Because maybe you voiced that, but your government didn't necessarily act in that way. I
think you always have to make clear that, or make sure that you are able to change the supplier. It is not. There's a German saying, you shouldn't put all the eggs in one basket, and this is what we will never do again, looking at gas.
Was it a mistake? And
it would have been better if we would have more baskets, and much more, it would have been very useful if we would have built the infrastructure of importing gas with ships. Even if this would not have been a good business case and it would have been just subsidized by public money to build the infrastructure which possibly is then not used. Again, you should know we are not just depending on gas, we are having a very broad supply of resources which make it feasible for us to produce electricity, for using coal, oil and gas for our industries and things and so on. And it is just a part of the part which is coming from Russia. But nevertheless, it would have been useful if we would have built this infrastructure earlier, and we could have learned from other countries. And it is a lesson which the world should learn, that it's useful to be a democracy and that democracies should cooperate as friends. And this is what makes the relationship to Canada that special, because we are like-minded countries. We fit together. We have the same ambitious aims for the future of our countries, and we can cooperate, and this is very important for us, and I hope so also for Canada.
And on that idea of cooperation, one specific, and that is, I'm sure you would expect, the question of the turbines. When Canada decided to make an exception to its sanctions, fix the turbine and send it back, I know that you and the Prime Minister have said that's about calling Putin's bluff. Did you personally ask the Prime Minister to make that exception?
We discussed on the question, and we did very early when it came up as a problem. And I'm really very thankful that the Prime Minister, the Canadian government, took this decision, because it helped us a lot. We should be very clear on what is the case. There is a pipeline for Russian gas through the Ukraine coming to Europe, which is used but not as much as it is feasible. There is a pipeline going through Belarus and Poland, which is not in use, and though it's owned by Russia in the end, it's sanctioned by Russia. And there is this Nord Stream 1 pipeline, where a lot of turbines are there. They could work. There is no reason for not letting them work and increasing the gas supply to Europe as it is contracted by Gazprom and Russia. But it is not happening, because they are playing a game. They are playing a game which is about to split the European countries in their solidarity with Ukraine, and to split the G7 countries and all the countries supporting Ukraine. And it is very, very good that this is not successful, and that we show it is part of the play of the game of Putin fighting against what he calls the global West. And this will not be successful.
And I know, as you said, you've called the bluff, and Russia is not accepting the turbine. So clearly there is something else at play, as you point out. What does that mean for the other 5 turbines? Because Ukraine is upset that this exception was made in the first place. If you send the turbine back and Russia's not accepting, or Gazprom isn't accepting it, what will sending another 5 turbines do? What's the point of that?
I'm absolutely sure that Ukraine is very much willing not to hurt Germany or the other European countries, because we should know that the Nord Stream 1 pipeline is not just serving Germany but many European countries. You should understand that there are also a lot of countries that have no shore, no border with the sea. They have no chance to import gas with ships, if not via Germany, for instance. And it will be helpful for many of them when we have built our ports, that they can also profit from this new way of importing gas with ships. And they know that a strong Germany is of essence for their own situation. We are giving a lot of financial support, development support. We are giving a lot of military support with weapons we deliver. I just today announced new deliveries we will have with very progressive, very effective weapons that are already in use in the east of Ukraine, and we will give more of these weapons to Ukraine to support them in their fight for integrity and sovereignty. And this is also something that is important, and if we can stem the situation, it's good for the Ukraine as well.
Respectfully, though, my question was, Ukraine is upset with the exceptions made to the sanctions. If Putin is not going to, and Gazprom is not going to accept the turbine and not going to open up the flow, why send more if it just continues to make Ukraine feel badly and they are upset about something like this? What is the point? You've called Putin's bluff. Why continue to...
I think we have to be very clear that we are always opposing his wrong stories about the world, and that we make clear that he is not right. There is no sanctions regime on gas that has been done by the European Union, and when we discussed it globally, there was an agreement that we will not create sanctions that harm the countries that are doing them more than those who are than the one that should be hurted.
Have you received assurances from the Prime Minister that those turbines will be returned?
I think there is a political understanding that we will cooperate, that we are friends, and that we will not that we will not make it feasible that the Russian game is working. And we cooperated also in another field in the same mood globally. You see, Putin was blaming the West, as he says, being responsible for the crisis that may come up with grain and all the exports of food from Ukraine. But it was never true. It was him and his war that made it difficult to export all this grain from Ukraine. We helped a lot with trains, with trucks, and we worked together with the United Nations General Secretary to find a solution how we could export the grain also from the ports of Ukraine. But it was always our common goal to make absolutely clear it is the Russian war against Ukraine that is creating the problem that there is not enough food in many countries of the world. It is not the Ukraine, it is not our sanctions regime, and acting in this way is always wise, as I see it.
Does it deflate the argument, though, when a country like Canada, my understanding from your answer is that those turbines are coming back, when they break their own sanctions? You're one of the only people who's talked to Putin, for example. Can you imagine how he views that situation?
The sanctions we already imposed on Russia have a very, very big impact on the development and of the Russian economy, and even
his aggression has not stopped.
Yeah, no one expected that he will stop from one day to the other his aggression. This is why we do all what is also necessary, supporting Ukraine with financial means, supporting Ukraine with humanitarian aid. You should understand that, for instance, and accepting that a lot of refugees find a safe place in our countries. In case of Germany, you should know it is now more than 900,000 that have been registered, and this is part of the support we are giving, and we also will continue to support Ukraine with the military means necessary.
All your conversations, but especially those with Vladimir Putin, do you believe this war will last years?
It would be not wise to do something like predicting how this will continue. because he made a big mistake. I'm absolutely convinced that he planned to invade the Ukraine in 2 or 3 weeks and to get the whole country. If you read what he wrote down as a theory about history and the consequences for our life today, you really understand he has a very imperialist view. He wants to get territory of his neighbors, and this is an aggression we never will accept. And so we are giving the support that Putin understands that he will not succeed with this, what he is doing, and the war will end when he understands that this is nothing that works.
Has he ever conveyed to you anything that would make you believe he will ever think that?
No. This would have been very surprising. He is asking for talks, but he offers something that could never be accepted. A dictate peace is nothing that will work. And I made it very clear to him, as I make it clear to the public. It will not work to have a dictate peace that he just takes parts of the territory and then waiting for better times to come. All these sanctions we imposed on Russia to stop this war, but also to change the path and go back to a situation where they are not trying to conquer the territory of the neighbor. All these sanctions will continue, and I think this is what he will have to understand for getting the moment when this could work. But it will be a moment where we have to be absolutely clear. It is not us taking the decisions for the Ukrainian people. It is the president of the Ukraine, it is the cabinet, it is the parliament, it is the people of the Ukraine that have to say what is a peace they would like to agree to. It's not us. We have to support them, and we are willing to do so, and we will not stop to do so.
Chancellor, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you. Hi, I'm Vassy Kapelos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.